Hey, 𝗟𝗶𝗱𝗂𝗶𝘁𝘆 here. I am just coming back with a short video. I hope short, but it's always interesting how long the video is going to be, depending on whether you do it ad hoc or planned. But I'm coming back with a 𝗟𝗟𝗀 video. I've been trying to do 𝗟𝗟𝗀 videos every day, and then I had this long, huge pause. If you guys have been tracking, you know there's a pause in there. And the reality is the pause kind of happened because 𝗟𝗟𝗀 is the side project I'm trying to do to show you how I can grow a business to $1 million in revenue by the end of the year. And I lost a good chunk of time after President Trump was inaugurated, and all sorts of things have been happening in the last 60 days. And I've got my day job, right? I'm helping a lot of my customers and trying to communicate with industry. Even today, I did a live. Today is March 24th. And I just did a live event on LinkedIn, YouTube, et cetera. And we had well over 350 people live for the event. And so kind of handling that and handling the comments, like, 400, almost 400 comments that people come in, and I like responding. I have that kind of activity, and I have other pretty major projects in the works, and so I'm doing those. And I want to come back to this. I've been meaning to come back to this, but life hits. Anyways, one of my focuses, though, is to try to sit there and come back and say, well, what could we be going after? And the interesting thing for me, as I look at what's going on, and by the way, shout out to Brett Foster, who came back to me today. He's like, look, no pressure, but I like those 𝗟𝗟𝗀𝗀𝗀 videos. Where are you going with those? Are you going to bring them back? I'm like, thanks for the kick in the butt. So I get back in here. But one of the things that paused me on the videos, and not really on purpose, it just kind of happened, and I let it kept happening, just like any of us go through. One was the Trump administration and Doge and all the changes, all these things going on. I said 𝗟𝗟𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀 was going to sell LinkedIn communication and outreach, et cetera. But since then, I'm just watching all of that get gutted. The government's not going to be buying that stuff. Little bitty things here and there. But I'm watching all these federal agencies just stop activity on LinkedIn and social media. I'm like, well, how am I building a social media company on there? And so so part of it is the Trump administration and Doge stuff going on, that I got to focus on my customers and focus on that. Part of it was, well, darn, like literally, this is what happened to me in 2017. I sold my company. I was going to start a fifth one. And the reason I'm doing the GovCon chamber, part of the reason, is because when I started my fifth company, literally within 2 months, Microsoft took my brilliant idea, and what I started a new company to do, they're like, you know what, we're going to do it, and we're going to do it for free. I'm like, you're killing me. So I pivot, right? Pivot's totally okay. If I can't remember if you've heard me say this before, if this is your first time, but in Silicon Valley, they never bet on the idea. They bet on the founders, because if they give you $1 million, let's say, in funding out there in Silicon Valley, then they're betting on the team to execute the idea. And if the idea has to pivot, even completely pivoting, that's fine, because they didn't really bet on the idea. The idea was still being worked out, but they bet on you. And so for me, when I had to pivot because of Microsoft, or now because of what's going on with Trump and the Trump administration and with Doge, I'm having to pivot. I'm having to say, okay, what am I going to sell in 𝗟𝗟𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀 that I can start up that's different from social media that I was going to do? Social media still is vitally important for all of us out there, but I want to show you how I can go into the government agencies. And the fun part about this exercise, I mean, and I don't mean it in a fun way for all the bad things that are happening, but being a government contractor at the moment is way harder than it was last year. Last year is just the same way it's been for decades. But now there's a whole new way of playing it, which is fine. They're still going to spend a ton of money, but you got to learn the new rules of the game. So I had to come up with, when I say I had to, I haven't come up with it, but I'm going to do this with you. My friend Brett, who was suggesting this, he says he's okay with this raw and seeing how I think. And so I figured I'd think with you instead of thinking ahead of time and come back and say, oh, this is what I'm going to do. I want you to see me kind of floundering a little bit to figure out what I'm doing, and then on Zoom, execute. And then when I get to the sales part, that hopefully will take off really according to the process. But what I wanted to talk about today, besides that early stuff I just said, was what am I going to sell? So that's the second thing, is that my social media idea, that's what I'm going to sell, is gone. So I got to come up with something else. And I think what I'm going to come up with is to build an AI company. this is ironic because I said if I ever built another government contracting firm, like if you don't know this, I've had 2 successful government contracting firms. And if I built a third, I said it would absolutely be on emerging technologies, artificial intelligence, machine learning, any of the data analytics and quantum stuff that's coming out. This is all the future of the world, but future of government contracting. So I think what I'm going to do is reshift or pivot away from social media as the service I'm going to sell to the government, and I'm going to shift into artificial intelligence. So social media was important because in my mind, the government wanted to reach out to communities, industry, or just the citizenry, whatever. But it was communication outreach. But literally, that's what we call a non-essential service. If the government shuts down, there's some services, essential services, that'll keep spending and some that are not. So social media and communication, that just gets gutted. But this new idea, what I plan on doing is shifting back over for 𝗟𝗂𝗃𝗃 and saying, okay, let me look at an idea that could be essential. And so that'll be my play. And I think what I'm going to do is, what I'm brainstorming now and what I'll hit the whiteboard and try to figure out how do I line that? How do I define that product? It's going to be around artificial intelligence. And in particular, it's going to be around how can the government use existing, what we might call commercial off-the-shelf AI tools. So an example is ChatGPT. That is a really well-known, popular AI tool. Well, if the government can buy an enterprise license, all those people in the government have no clue how to use it. And so I can stand up some sort of service. The service might be how to train them to use it. Another service might be I could build what they call agents. So if you're familiar with ChatGPT, where you can go in and ask it questions, well, the more you get advanced with those prompts, you can package those prompts and they become basically like a mini application or an agent within. And so I'm thinking within the government, could I look across what they do and start selling agents? An example, really simple example, and I don't even know if this is like, I'm about to date myself, but back in the day when I was in the Army and we were in a barracks, we had assignments. People would have assignments. And so you had all this kind of activity in there. Well, we would use all these fancy sheets trying to do it. I'm curious whether anybody has really automated that process. And if they haven't, that's an example of something I might be able to build. I'm just going to look around the federal government slowly but surely and try to find these agents that could be built in a week or 2. They should be very, very fast. They're not designed to save hundreds of hours down to seconds. They're really designed to take an hour task and make it a minute. I might not be saving the government thousands of hours, but if I start building a lot of these apps, it'll work really well. So again, keep in mind, this is a 𝗟𝗂𝗃𝗃 project on the side to show you how I can build $1 million. But as I'm coming back to you and I'm reshifting or pivoting away from social media, I'm going to look at AI. And so my next task between now and the next time I talk to you, which I'm going to stop for a second and say, I'm not going to do it daily. I might come back daily, but I don't want to promise you I will come back as soon as I can. But the idea is I need to quickly go, what do I mean by AI and how can I niche it down? It's really important that you have a clear, focused offer when you're selling something. And I need to create one for 𝗟𝗂𝗃𝗃𝗃. And then I need to make sure it's niched down. An example is AI is this huge thing. And so I want to sit there and say, it's not going to be these large language models or training the AI tools on how to do something. That's not what we're doing. What I'm going to be doing is focusing on solutions like I just described, little mini apps or agents within AI. And so I have to work that out on the whiteboard and figure out what I'm doing. When I finish that, then I'll move quickly into doing that marketing tools again, quickly do DSBS and capability statement. If you've been along for the journey, you know what I'm talking about. Okay, so I think I'm going to pause there for a second. It's me coming back and saying, sorry, been busy, but I'm back. I still am very interested in creating a $1 million in annual recurring revenue by the end of 2025. So I started this journey on January 1st. I've already had to pivot now. I've had delays. I didn't tell you about this, but I had all sorts of hiccups with sam.gov because I tried to use a virtual address that was quasi-physical, but they didn't buy it. And now I'm like, oh man, now I got to go back to the IRS and do some stuff. This is all just normal business stuff. And so I'll keep tackling that. But while I'm tackling the SAM stuff, I'm going to pivot my product offering and service offering over into AI. And my goal is still to get to $1 million in recurring revenue by the end of the year. And what that means is basically about $800,000, $900,000 a month. No, not 900,000. $90,000 recurring revenue a month is what I'm trying to get to be at that $1 million company. Anyways, I'll talk to you a lot more about it. But I'm back. I'm enthusiastic about trying to help you figure out that journey. Keep in mind that if you are in the government space and you're tracking on all this stuff, one thing the government never stops doing is spending money. You just got to figure out where that's at. And that's what I'm going to do with 𝗟𝗂 as I align it on this new offering, is figure out where it's at. And I'm actually going to try to get ahead of the curve. And I think I'll be able to team up with a lot of companies who just aren't that AI skilled, right? They have skills in other areas. And so I can complement them by bringing an AI play. All right, throw questions in the comments if you have them. Otherwise, I will see you the next time I come back.